Hi, I'm Dawn White. Thanks for joining me today to read Grace Goes to Washington. Why am I reading this book, you may ask? Because Tennesseans for Student Success, along with Tristar Reads, is holding their annual contest for students like you. They're encouraging you to read at least 20 minutes a day. To log those hours and minutes, please visit tristarreads.com. They are offering 3 $1,000 scholarships, so good luck and log those hours and minutes at tristarreads.com. Now let's get to Grace Goes to Washington. I used to be a teacher myself, so holding a book like this reading to you brings back a lot of fond memories. Grace Goes to Washington. On Friday afternoon in April, Miss Barrington shared a large diagram of the 3 branches of the U.S. government. But Grace Campbell could not stop daydreaming about her upcoming field trip to Washington, D.C. Grace, do you know who's in charge here? Miss Barrington said. Who's in charge here? Grace thought. Principal Perez. And a few of her classmates giggled. Well, Miss Barrington said, I suppose you could say Principal Perez is like the executive branch here at Wilson Elementary because she's the head of our school. But right now, we're talking about the U.S. government. Sorry, Grace answered. The president, he or she, leads the executive branch. Well, that's correct, Mrs. Barrington smiled. The president. The last spell of the day rang. We'll discuss this next week, she announced. Student Council, Grace and Sam, don't forget we have a meeting after school. At the meeting, class representatives were discussing their ideas on how they should spend the money they raised from the holiday bake sale. Thomas and his committee petitioned for new sports equipment. Grace and her committee thought new books for the library were the way to go. Principal Perez even offered up her own suggestion. The music room sure could use some new instruments, she said. Mr. Marshall, the media center teacher, listened carefully at all of the arguments and took notes. They're all good ideas, Grace later admitted to Sam. There's no way we'll agree before the vote next week. You know, I was thinking during the meetings, Sam asked. What were you thinking? If Principal Perez is like the executive branch, I think the student council is kind of like the legislative branch because we were elected as leaders from each class and we help make decisions for our school. Grace considered Sam's comparison. Yeah? Who knew so many people had to say in how to spend the cookie money, she grumbled. The following day, Grace could hardly contain her excitement. It was finally field trip day. As the bus drove down Pennsylvania Avenue, cherry blossoms dotted the streets like pink pom-poms. Grace and her classmates visited the Lincoln Memorial, the U.S. Capitol, where the legislative branch met, the Supreme Court building. That's where you'll find the judicial branch and the Supreme Court judges, Sam pointed out. They decided if our rules and laws are fair, he said. Kind of like Mr. Marshall does at our student council meetings, Grace added. During the tour of the White House, home of the executive branch, Grace dreamed of becoming president felt more real. The final stop of the day was the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial. Grace studied the words engraved on the monument and thought about the meaning. At recess the next day, Arguments about what to purchase for the school grew more heated. Look at this crummy basketball, Claire complained. It's practically worthless. At least you have a ball, Fletcher groaned. Those are 2 new books on the Ninja Wizard series, but our library doesn't even have one. Hannah lobbied the loudest for new instruments. Well, I, for one, am just sick and tired of playing the recorder in music class. Principal Perez is right. Grace glared at Thomas, who was usually very quiet. She looked past him to see what he was staring at. Grace didn't recognize the boy sitting all alone. He must be new, she thought. He kind of looked sad. Just then the bell rang and students scattered. Wait, Grace yelled out to the boy. You forgot something. Grace handed him his sketchbook. I like your drawing, she said. Thanks, said the boy with a smile. Grace caught up with Thomas in the hallway. I have an idea, she said. A few days later, the student council last meeting of the year was being called to order. Excuse me, Grace interrupted. Before we vote, Thomas and I would like to introduce you to someone. This is Amon. He's our new student. We'd all like for you to consider one more option for how to spend the bake sale money. Together, they rolled out a big poster. We're calling it the Friendship Mall, Thomas said proudly. Mon helped us design it. It's a place where you can go at recess to let other students know that you need a friend. Next, Thomas spoke about their field trip to Washington, D.C., and Grace read a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. A fonder, kinder world starts with us and the choices we make, she concluded. Thanks for listening. Everyone clapped. Principal Perez wiped away a few tears. Mr. Marshall pounded his gavel and said, it's time to vote. After the ballots were collected and each classroom representative and the votes were tallied and the student council president, Grace Campbell, peeked at the results and grinned. It's a unanimous decision, she announced. All members are in favor of the Friendship Mall. The room filled with happy cheers. Principal Perez took a seat and then, much like the president, signed a bill into law. She approved the election results and made the decision official. Today, you put your own wants and needs aside in order to serve others, she said, beaming. That is true leadership. This time, everyone agreed. Thank you so much for joining me. This has been a true pleasure and a lot of fun for me. So remember, keep reading, log those minutes and hours at TristarReads.com. Thanks again and have a great day.